Gaps in your schedule, late cancellations, or maybe you need to get a specific provider busy may have you feeling really frustrated right now. And today I'm going to be sharing all my best practices to get patients scheduled where you need it and where you want it the most, right? Because we all have maybe one or two providers that they're booked to the brim, and then another provider that's over there checking Instagram or on her cell phone, right? And she's just not busy enough. So today I'm really excited to be sharing with you my best practices. But before I dive in, I'd really love for you to share with me where you need the most help. Where are you struggling? Do you feel like you need to fill gaps in your schedule for all of your providers? Is it to fill those last minute cancellations that even when you have a really strong cancellation policy in place, still happens? Or do you have a specific provider that you're really looking to get busy? And maybe you're even someone that is going to say, oh, all of the above, right? So in the comments section, I'd love to know, what is it that you feel like your Medspa is struggling the most when it comes to your scheduling? All right, gaps in the schedule. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for sharing that. All right, so I'm going to dive in right now and get right to my best practices to get patients scheduled where you need it and want it the most. So depending on how you answered my last question, as I'm sharing my best practices and tips today, you'll really, of course you can do all of them, but you can be strategic with your time and your efforts based on really who you are trying to fill up. So the very first thing that you are going to want to think about is a shift in mindset. Because the success really is in the follow-up, and you have to be committed and consistent long-term for this to be successful. And really what I mean by that is to have a patient list. And I really encourage it to be a segmented patient list to fill last minute availability. So I'm going to break that down what that could possibly look like. So if I was to have a med spa, I would segment my patient list to be able to have my front desk reach out to a variety of demographics. So of course, there's a no-brainer where you have a list of patients that said, I want to come in Friday at noon. That's the only time I'm only available, Friday at noon or whatever, to come in. And you're like, sorry, we're booked up at that time. And she's like, okay, I'll just try back later or another time, or I'll check my schedule, right? You might add that person to this list of, they wanted to come in Friday at noon. That was the only time that they wanted. And we couldn't meet their needs. And so if there is a cancellation, I'm going to call this person. And very few med spas actually pay attention or take the time to do this, but you absolutely should have a waiting list for specific dates and times right at your front desk. The next segmented list is new patient follow-ups. What I mean by that is, let's say, depending on the treatment, maybe it's 1 week, maybe it's 1 month, maybe it's 3 months. It really depends. Like if it's a cool sculpting client, right? You want to have a list of new patient follow-ups to make sure that they're coming in for their before and after pictures. They're not having any complications if they or questions. If they didn't book their next appointment before they left, you want to check in with them and try to get that next appointment scheduled, because statistically, less than 40% of new patients are ever going to return. And remember, you are paying anywhere between, $100, $200 on the very low side, upwards of, $500 plus in your marketing to acquire a new patient. And so you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to retain them, because with every follow-up appointment, second, third, fourth, every additional appointment that a patient has with you, is the more likely for them to convert into a lifetime patient with you. Okay, so you want to have a system in place to follow up with those new patients once they come in. In addition to that, for those patients that came in for a consultation, and let's say they didn't buy that day, right? I'm going to think about it patients, you need to have them on your segmented list as well to follow up with them. Did you have any questions? Did you look into, our financing options? Are you ready to schedule and book that appointment? So you want those lost consultations that didn't commit that day, you want to be working that list as well. Another one that is one of my favorites for a segmented list is your membership list, because one of the greatest reasons why people eventually quit their membership is because they're not using it. They don't know how to use it. So it just sits there. And after so many months where they see that charge on their credit card statement, they're going to cancel. Or even if you have a really sound cancellation policy and they complete their membership, whether that's 6 months or a year, if they're not using their membership, they're not going to renew it, guys. And so you should be able to pull a report of your membership patients and see when the last time that they were in, and teach them, show them, make it super easy for them to use their membership dollars or their bank or schedule their next treatment. So it's all about making sure that they are using their membership. Guys, that tip right there alone, if you implement it and create a system around it, I promise you, will give you a good chunk of activity and appointments on your schedules. But it really takes a dedicated person to commit to working these segmented lists, right? So in the beginning, you gotta find that person, make sure that they're armed with the right language, make sure they understand how to pull those reports. And this could even potentially be a 2-person job, right? It might be pretty easy for a person at your front desk to work the, wasn't available at the requested time list, right? Or maybe, but maybe more of a patient coordinator or a provider that has downtime. And guys, it is rare that a provider is at 80% plus above their capacity, right? It's very rare. In fact, that's the goal, is to try to get your providers at 80%. And we're really feeling great when providers at 80%, right? So what are they doing with that downtime? This is absolutely something that you can make a part of their role and responsibility if you don't have a front desk or a patient coordinator that is able to follow up with people and teaching them how to use their membership, following up with those new patients and making sure that they had a good experience. They don't have questions, they're not having complications, they've scheduled their next appointment. Or if they came in for a consult and didn't buy, why didn't they buy? Was it a financing problem? Did you explain what your financing options were, right? Or maybe that there was just a question or objection that you didn't overcome in the consultation room and they just didn't feel comfortable at that time, right? It's really important to get to the why behind why they didn't commit or move forward so that you can continue to get better and improve your closing rate. So establish those segmented patient lists and work those opportunities. Kind of a bonus one that I love to throw in is the birthday. Now, I'm a strong believer that when it is a woman's birthday month, once it comes past a certain age, it becomes apparent to us of I got to work a little harder, try a little harder, right? To keep up my look or try to take some years off of my look, right? So in my birthday month is a really good time to make contact, reach out, make it super easy, maybe even a small incentive or gift to get that patient in on their birthday, because all of a sudden I may be much more open and interested in, that higher ticket package or treatment plan, and certainly adding medical grade skincare to my daily regimen, right? So you should absolutely be sending even an email or a text message with a birthday incentive to get them in, but even a personal phone call. Now, all of these different segmented lists, I first really encourage this to be something that is done manually. Once you have a person really have a high number of reps or at bats and having this conversation. A lot of these different segmented lists, you can create campaigns within your dashboard to automate it, utilizing voicemail drops and follow-up text messages. And then if they're interested and open to having that conversation, then they're going to either call you back or respond to the text message. But I first like this to be in the hands of a human, so that, again, you can get the verbiage of really what you're saying over and over again to help you create that custom messaging or next steps or follow-up email or that voicemail drop that's going to give you a higher conversion. Okay, so success is all about the follow-up, being committed and consistent, and really working those phones and text lines. Okay, so my next tip that's a little bit simpler is to have build some templates in Canva with your brand design, right? Your colors, your logos, to make this super simple. And either your in-house marketing person or even your front desk, because once you again have this kind of system in place, it's going to be pretty easy to do it on the drop of the dime. Okay, so build some templates in Canva specifically for common last minute openings or appointments, right? Because we all have that one provider or that one service or that one treatment room that seems to be slow or needs more activity or appointments on the book. Okay, so create some specific Canva templates and utilize those to send out on your organic social media pages for last minute appointments. Tell them exactly what it is. Now, you can be general, right? We have an opening today, 10 to 11 or whatever. But where we see the most success is when you get, specific, either specific with a provider that's hard to get in on, specific on a treatment, right? But if you're just general and generic and announcing it, then that's not going to be as successful for you, and unless you add a discount, or, right, if you're like, no, I'm opposed to discounts, okay, great, don't do that. Add value then. Because guess what, guys? You're likely still having to pay your provider to just sit there and do nothing. So something is better than nothing. And I believe in really banking or betting on your team that once I just get that patient in there, I'm going to do such a good job with them, treat them so well, give them such good results, that I'm going to make sure that when they leave, they're rebooking their next appointment, or they're paying full price, or I convert them into my membership, right? So you don't want to do any of these things unless you first have a really great consultation, ascension, or membership model to make sure that you're just not giving discounts or added value, that you really can take that patient and utilize all the tools in your tool belt that's going to give them a great result and is going to bring revenue into the Medspa. Okay, so create those Canva templates and be ready to just plug in, whether it's a discount for a last minute opening, my favorite added value, right? So, if it's a facial last minute appointment, maybe you add on, some kind of mask or an extra hand massage or something, or LED light, right? Try to think about an add-on that doesn't have a high consumable for you, okay? Because we don't want to give away the farm, but again, something is better than nothing. So all of these things, these two things that I shared with you, absolutely have some pre-planning involved. It also has some trial and error and testing what's going to be most successful for you in your Medspa to get people to schedule in to take action. Some of that has to do with what you're offering, what you're saying, how you're overcoming questions and objections, and making sure that you're asking for the appointment at the end of the day, making it really easy and a no-brainer for them to give you your business. Okay, so those really are my tips and best practices to fill those last minute cancellations and gaps, or specifically targeting a specific provider to get their schedule busier. And because on that last note with the provider, all of these maybe special promos or phone calls or discounts really could be applied only to a specific provider, right? You don't have to allow it for anyone and everyone. If you need to get a new injector busier, maybe there's a promo price just that applies to that injector only and nobody else. And so if you get someone that calls and was like, hey, I want Sue for the promo price, is like, oh no, sorry. If you want the promo price, you got to go over to, our new injector, Jennifer, or whoever it may be, right? It's a common practice that a lot of med spas do to try to get those new providers busy. I know everyone says, oh, like my patient would never go to someone else besides me, right? But it happens every day, guys. Like it happens when the med spa down the street runs a promo or has a Botox party with their girlfriend, and all of a sudden you're not the one injecting them, right? So wouldn't you rather them go to someone in-house at least and keep them in your med spa if they are going to be lured away by a price? Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, and before we wrap things up, it's really that time of year where if you don't have a process where you're looking under the hood of your med spa regularly, I sure hope you are at least doing it at year's end. And one of the most important things to measure to fill up your schedule is not just getting new appointments in the door from your marketing, right? But making sure that you're retaining them and rebooking them for their next appointment. And I've shared with many of our clients and my audience before the study and the table of what it takes and how long it takes to fill your schedule. And just as a quick reminder, it's more so about your rebooking rate than it is even about getting new patients in the door. I promise you guys that. Because if you're just worried about new patients in the door, you're turning and burning on a hamster wheel, right? And you're paying the cost of acquiring that patient every single time you get a new patient. And if you're not retaining them, you might be busier, but you're not going to really get the benefit of the revenue at the end of the day because you're always paying the acquisition cost in your marketing for that new patient. So we have to retain them. And remember, we're shooting for 70% rebooking rate. So if you aren't tracking your rebooking rates right now, absolutely by individual provider, track the retention rate, And you also need to make sure that you have a process and your patient journey mapped out of who's ultimately responsible for that rebooking. So in some med spas, the provider might make the recommendation of when I want to see the patient again, and the front desk is responsible for getting them rebooked. Another med spa, the provider might be responsible for getting the commitment. And then at checkout, she simply says to the front desk, hey, make sure you schedule Sue for her 3-month follow-up. And then she gets her scheduled. So at the end of the day, it can be a team effort, a collaborative effort, but you have to, one, provide benchmarks of what is expected and monitor that closely, set targets, and then give them the tools, the training, the feedback loop, and the accountability loop to make sure that you're giving them all that they need, setting them up for success to hit that 70%, right? When you get to 75, 80% rebooking rate, man, oh man, watch out. Your schedule is going to be filled consistently once you are able to consistently have a high rebooking rate and new patients in the door coming in. You guys are going to be really, really excited with how your schedule looks and revenue in your bank at the end of the day. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions at this time. If you don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining me.